In Rich Dad's Cashflow Quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki argues that to generate wealth, what kind of income you generate is more important than how much income you generate or what kind of work you do. Kiyosaki uses the stories of his now famous rich dad, his friend's father, and poor dad, his own father, to illustrate how different income types lead to different results. He divides income into 4 categories, which he calls cash flow quadrants. Employees E. The self-employed and small business owners S. Big business owners B. Investors I. According to Kiyosaki, the first 2 income categories, employees E and the self-employed and small business owners S, are usually dead ends on the road to wealth. The other 2 categories, big business owners B and investors I, are the most conducive to accumulating wealth because those are the categories in which you can develop income-generating assets. Rich Dad's cash flow quadrant is about moving from the E and S categories to the B and I categories, or at least adding I income to existing E or S income. We'll dive into the 4 income categories in parts 2 and 3, but first you need to understand that wealth is about more than just money. In this section, we'll explain why Kiyosaki says more wealth equals more freedom, why you don't need to strive for billions to take advantage of the income generation strategies of the B and I categories, and why you shouldn't feel guilty about wanting wealth. More wealth equals more freedom. Robert Kiyosaki has been rich and has been poor. Rich is better, he says, because the more money you have, the freer you are to pursue life on your own terms. Money is time. It goes without saying how more wealth equals more time and greater resources. The more money you have, the less time you have to spend working for it. And the more money you have, the more money you have to spend doing what it is you want to do. To Kiyosaki, being able to spend all your time doing exactly what you want is freedom. One of the key differences between Kiyosaki's rich dad and poor dad is in the relationship between their career trajectories and the amount of free time they had. As rich dad, a businessman and investor, excelled in his career, he had more and more time to spend with his family and on his passions. As poor dad, actually an upper-middle-class public education official in E and S categories, excelled in his career, he had to work harder and longer hours because he was given more work and responsibility. In summary, the harder poor dad worked, the poorer he was in time. The harder rich dad worked, the more free time he gained. Money is freedom. Freedom to spend your time the way you want isn't the only type of freedom wealth brings. According to Kiyosaki, the ultimate goal of building wealth is a step further: financial freedom. To Kiyosaki, financial freedom means never having to work again. The financially free can do nearly whatever they want, whenever they want, because money is almost never an obstacle. While Kiyosaki focuses on how to achieve 1%er capitalist-level financial freedom where all your time is yours and almost nothing is out of reach, he says the principles he puts forward are equally useful for reaching financial security. Even if you're not willing to commit yourself to the risks and lifestyle it takes to achieve financial freedom, Kiyosaki thinks that, at minimum, you should strive for a life where concerns about money don't dictate the way you live. Ultimately, Kiyosaki wants you to transcend job security, where your life is defined by the dollar amount on your paycheck and the parameters of your day-to-day work. To Kiyosaki, if all you have is job security, all you have is job dependency. Financial freedom versus financial independence. In contrast to Kiyosaki's focus on financial freedom, Sethi and most of the personal finance community stress the importance of financial independence. This is the point at which your passive income can pay for all your expenses and you no longer have to work. Financial independence offers more freedom, as Kiyosaki defines it, than financial security because you no longer need to work. When Kiyosaki talks about financial freedom, he's usually talking about capitalist-level wealth. In contrast, financial independence can mean 1% level wealth, but since it only means that your passive income is greater than your expenses, you can be financially independent with much less wealth. Some of this difference between financial freedom and financial independence is semantic, but it's useful to know what these terms are most likely referring to when you hear them. It's good to want wealth. Kiyosaki says there's no shame in wanting to be rich. For one thing, he says, more wealth means more freedom, and no one can be blamed for wanting freedom. Some people argue that wanting wealth and taking part in our capitalist system is immoral. While Kiyosaki allows that our system has significant flaws that create inequality, he says it's easier to beat the system by generating wealth than it is to change the system to make it fairer. There are many reasons Kiyosaki thinks wealth accumulation is actually moral. Kiyosaki says there's nothing particularly moral about being beholden to a job you hate, lack of funds, or debt. Because learning to generate wealth requires delayed gratification and living below your means, trying to become rich will teach you financial self-control. In fact, he says that by not striving at least for financial security, you set a bad example for your kids who will inherit your attitude toward money. Kiyosaki argues that generating massive amounts of wealth is actually generous. Trickle-down economics and the morality of wealth. Kiyosaki isn't alone in asserting that accumulating wealth is a moral imperative. This belief is in line with the conservative theory of trickle-down economics. Trickle-down theory posits that the ownership class, also known as the asset-owning capitalists who are very successful in the B and I categories, which we'll cover in Part 3, creates jobs for the middle and lower classes and therefore should be rewarded with lower taxes and less regulation. Critics of trickle-down economics attribute it to growing income inequality. Instead of creating jobs, they say, giving benefits to the already rich just makes them richer and deprives everyone else of resources they need. A 2020 London School of Economics study found that over 50 years in 18 wealthy countries, tax cuts mostly benefited the rich and had little effect on unemployment or economic growth. Many economists say tax cuts for the lower and middle classes are better for the economy. While accumulating wealth may help you get out of debt, develop self-control, and teach your kids how to save, it's unclear that the mere fact of having wealth is a moral good. Part 2.1 Employees and Small Business Owners. Common wisdom focuses on what kind of jobs generate the most money. Kiyosaki wants us to think differently and focus on what kind of income will generate the most money. As we've previewed, there are 4 general ways of generating income: as an employee, E, as a self-employed person or a small business owner, S, as a large business owner, B, and as an investor, I. In the E and S categories, you generate income from the work you do. In this section, we'll start by defining how you generate income in the E and S categories. We'll discuss the other 2 categories, B and I, in Part 3. We'll also discuss the traits that generally attract people to these categories. Then we'll explain why Kiyosaki says the E and S categories constitute the traditional path and why they're no longer a safe bet for financial security, much less financial freedom. Employees and the self-employed/small business owners, the E and S categories. According to Kiyosaki, in both the E and S categories, the money you make is based on the work you do. Here, we'll define both categories and explain how income is generated in each one. We'll also explore the values Kiyosaki associates with the E and S categories and how they influence E's and S's choice of work and attitudes toward money. Keep in mind that neither your training nor your career field dictates what category you're in, only the way you generate your income does. Employee E. An employee works for a business, organization, or person. As an employee, you have a paycheck and a boss. You have a contract and exchange work for money on a continuing basis. Examples: CEOs and secretaries are both in the E category because they draw a salary from the company they work for. Values: Kiyosaki says people drawn to the E category prioritize security. According to Kiyosaki, people often choose the E category because they value predictability of their day-to-day work, clarity in their job responsibilities, knowing they will be paid regularly, knowing their job is safe as long as they keep performing well. The health and retirement benefits an E category job has traditionally offered. According to Kiyosaki, E's are influenced by fear of uncertainty in both their job responsibilities and especially in their finances and are willing to sacrifice money for security. Disadvantages: other than the financial trap Kiyosaki says an E job will land you in, which we discuss in the second half of the section. Kiyosaki says the disadvantages of an E job are the lack of control you have over your day-to-day work and the idea that the better you are at your job, the more responsibility you get and the harder you have to work. Benefits of the E category. While Kiyosaki is quick to point out the downsides of being an employee, he's short on positives. One benefit of an E category job is that it can be a great way to learn skills and get paid for it. Kiyosaki notes that he was an employee of the Xerox company for 4 years, where he learned to overcome his shyness as a salesman. Furthermore, many people appreciate rather than feel held back by the structure of an E category job. People with mortgages, student loans, or other long-term significant debt may appreciate predictable pay. Parents with school-age children may appreciate a predictable work schedule. Though Kiyosaki makes the disclaimer that all 4 cash flow quadrants make up an important part of the economy, he downplays the fact that many people seek out E category jobs because they enjoy work they can only do in the E category. Professors, researchers, chefs, and teachers, for example, all make a salary and often attract people interested in the particular kind of work offered in the E category. Self-employed/small business owner S. The self-employed and small business owners are their business. They are their own boss and can also be the boss of other people, but without their labor, expertise, and management, their business can't run. Their income is the profit from their business. Examples: restaurateurs, makeup artists, doctors, and writers are all in this category. Values: Kiyosaki says people drawn to the S category prioritize personal excellence and independence. According to Kiyosaki, people often choose the S category because they value being at the top of their chosen field. For S's, being good at their craft matters a lot. Kiyosaki labels S's both perfectionists and artists. According to Kiyosaki, they think that they are the best at what they do and want to have control over their work. They bristle when people who aren't as talented as they are decide their pay. According to Kiyosaki, an S's need for independence and personal excellence tops their desire for money. Like those in the E category, they also value security. Unlike those in the E category, they feel secure when they take control completely because they trust themselves more than anyone else. Disadvantages: the biggest negative in the S category, according to Kiyosaki, is that most small businesses fail. S's are at particular risk for burnout because they have to perform all the functions of their business, not just their core competency. A self-employed stylist has to be her own marketing team, do all her own invoices and expenses, and plan all her own travel. Like E's, if an S business does succeed, Kiyosaki warns that success means long hours and a lot of hard work. Why small businesses fail? About 60% of small businesses will fail within their first 10 years. Causes for small business failure other than the ones Kiyosaki lists include: not enough capital. Small businesses need to plan to have enough of a financial cushion to keep them afloat until they become profitable. If they haven't allocated enough, money can run out before the business is profitable, and it's difficult for unprofitable businesses to get loans. Having a bad business plan or not sticking to your good business plan. A bad business plan is a simple recipe for failure, and most businesses can't absorb major spending or other changes. Poor or overwhelmed management. A small business owner has to manage both the business plan and a team of employees. They must have both business and leadership sense. One without the other is usually a sign of trouble. Not reading the market. In the heat of their desire to have a certain kind of small business, many S's will enter an already saturated market. Additionally, your location and marketing, including internet presence, need to connect you to the right customers. Your business can't thrive without customers. Caring more about excellence and independence than money. As discussed, people in the S category often take great pride in the quality of their work, but quality doesn't always translate to more sales or contracts. When S's prioritize excellence at the expense of efficiency or marketing, their business is likely to fail. Kiyosaki assures us that E's and S's do important and necessary jobs in the economy. He says that E's prize security and S's prize independence and excellence in their field in addition to and as a means toward security. However, because of economic changes over the past half-century, Kiyosaki argues that the E and S categories are significantly less secure than they used to be and are, in fact, risky. Part 2.2: Why the traditional path to wealth no longer works. According to Kiyosaki, the path to financial security used to be clear. Traditional advice tells us to get a college education and then find a good job in the E or S categories with benefits and a pension. On this path, which we'll call the traditional path, you could expect financial security for the rest of your life. To Kiyosaki, that's a plan that worked in the 20th century. But in the 21st century, the traditional path leads to hard work in exchange for job dependency, inadequate retirement, a pernicious debt cycle, tax disadvantages, and diluted savings, not financial security. And almost certainly not financial freedom. What you use to get on the traditional path. Education, then good job in the E or S categories, then great benefits and pension, then secure retirement. What you get on the traditional path today. Debt-causing and possibly not very useful education, then job dependency in the E or S categories, then more debt, then the short end of the stick on taxes. Then inadequate benefits and pension, then insecure retirement. Problem 1. Traditional education doesn't teach us the skills to achieve wealth. On the traditional path, higher education was the first step to generating wealth. A college degree led to a job in your field, usually in the E or S categories, and that job was the foundation for financial security. As we'll continue to explain, a job on its own is no longer a safe bet for financial security and almost definitely won't deliver financial freedom. According to Kiyosaki, education, including higher education, is inadequate for generating wealth in the 21st century for two related reasons. 1. Since, as we noted earlier, we can no longer count on traditional E and S jobs to deliver financial security, the higher education that prepares us for those jobs is no longer a crucial step toward financial security. 2. While financial security and freedom is now detached from a job and attached to knowing the skills to succeed in business and investing, we don't learn these skills from traditional education. Kiyosaki says the financial education we get from our parents and communities, high schools, and college degrees is usually inadequate or wrong. Unless our parents are highly financially literate, we inherit their partial and usually bad ideas about managing money. Even if their financial and career advice worked for them, the economic landscape has probably changed significantly since then. High schools don't pick up the slack either. Personal finance, business and investing, and economics are usually taught as an afterthought if they're taught at all. Unless we study finance or business, we don't become financially literate in college either. While Kiyosaki says we can learn important skills and ways of thinking in college and advocates that we still get a college education, he says we should not expect that a college degree will lead to a good job or financial security. Further, just getting a college education can land you in tens of thousands of dollars of debt before you've even started your working life. As we'll cover in later sections, debt is a big barrier to financial security and freedom. Problem 2, there are not enough good jobs. In the 20th century, a good job in the E or S category could support a comfortable life with job security and high wages. Now, Kiyosaki says, in addition to the pensions that used to be tied to your job, which we'll get to in a moment, there are far fewer secure, high-income jobs. Discrimination limited access to good jobs. It's important to note that for much of the 20th century, women and people of color were denied access to secure, high-income jobs in the first place. Part of the reason there are fewer of these jobs to go around now is that they were never available to most of the population, and now more people are competing for them. Historical discrimination also explains why a greater share of today's jobs have inadequate benefits. Today, manufacturing jobs are in decline, while jobs in the service and retail sectors are growing. Because service and retail jobs were historically considered women's work, they aren't connected to benefits or high wages the way manufacturing jobs, primarily the purview of men, are. Kiyosaki identifies downsizing as one reason there are fewer good jobs. Because of cheap labor overseas, a trend toward consolidation in business and automation, employers are cutting jobs and cutting pay. Cheap foreign labor means employers save money when they outsource jobs that used to be held by higher-paid American workers. When businesses consolidate, they don't have to compete as hard for workers and can offer lower wages. The decline of good jobs. Along with downsizing, many other trends have contributed to the decline of secure, high-income jobs. The rise of the gig economy has increased the number of jobs classified as independent contractor positions which don't offer benefits or stable pay. The 1970s marked the beginning of the end for the strong labor laws first established in the 1940s. With labor laws that favor employers over employees, it is now much easier for employers to fight unionization, which strengthens benefits and pay. Economists differ in their opinions on income inequality, but most agree that it's not good for the average worker. Between 2009 and 2015, top 1% income grew faster than the income of the other 99% of the population in more than 40 states. The U.S. Private Sector Job Quality Index, JQE, is a monthly indicator created in 2019 that measures, unlike other common indicators, the quality of new jobs being created. Good jobs, according to the index, offer more than average income, bad jobs offer less. According to the index, more bad jobs have been created since 1990 than good. Problem 3. You can't rely on your job for a secure retirement. One of the biggest advantages to an E-category job is a pension. Unfortunately, pensions are one of the major ways financial security has changed from the 20th to the 21st century. You are less likely to have a pension than your parents or grandparents. The norm has shifted from a defined benefit system to a defined contribution system. In the defined benefit system, you were guaranteed a pension, which meant income for life after you stopped working. In the defined contribution system, you only get what you and your employer contribute during your working years. You're at risk of running out of income during your retirement. Since you aren't guaranteed income for life, your pension is susceptible to market forces. In a crash, you could sustain significant losses. Problem 4. Debt and taxes are your biggest, hidden expenses. The traditional path from higher education to a good job to a secure retirement doesn't account for what Kiyosaki says your two biggest expenses will be in the E and S categories: debt and taxes. Debt. Mounting debt is one way your job locks you into a bad cycle. The more debt you take on, the more beholden you are to your job because you need that income to pay back your debt each month. And unfortunately, according to Kiyosaki, the expectations of a good life on the traditional path increase our debt. As we previously touched on, student loan debt creates job dependency before you've even started to work. Because of the often significant bill that comes due after graduation, you're compelled to start working right away and work towards a higher paycheck so you can pay back your loans. Kiyosaki says since we're often issued credit cards before we have any financial literacy and many people never become very financially literate, we're at risk for spending beyond our means and falling into significant debt. According to Kiyosaki, once we get the job we've taken out loans for, fretted over, and worked hard at, we want the material rewards we've been conditioned to associate with success and adulthood. We go into debt to pay for rent, furniture, vacations, and cars. Eventually, we want the biggest debt creator of all, homeownership. Against traditional wisdom, Kiyosaki thinks of your house as a liability, not an asset. Between your mortgage, property taxes, repairs, and other costs that come with owning your own home, you lose money every year on your home. Kiyosaki wants you to think about this simply. If you're losing money every month on your home, it's a liability, not an asset. We'll come back to this distinction soon. The argument that your home actually is an asset. The argument that your house is a liability and not an asset is one of Kiyosaki's most contrarian claims. Many experts point out that even though you pay your mortgage and other homeownership expenses each month, every payment gets you closer to owning your home. Even if you never pay off your mortgage fully, though most people do, the greater share of your mortgage you pay off, the greater your equity, the amount of your property you own, and the greater share of the profit you'll keep when you sell your home. Even more simply, everyone needs a place to live. Buying a home makes more sense than renting for many people because renting builds no equity. Finally, if you're self-employed and your small business fails, which is likely, you'll not only be out of a job, you'll also likely be in significant debt. Taxes. Along with debt, taxes are likely your other biggest expense in the E and S category. Kiyosaki makes two main points about taxes. 1. In the United States and most other countries, when your pay jumps, so does your tax bracket. In Kiyosaki's view, this means the more you earn, the more you're punished for it. A coda on Kiyosaki's point on homeownership, traditional wisdom says that since you land in a higher tax bracket once you start to make more money, you should buy a bigger house for the tax advantages. In Kiyosaki's view, all this does is lock you into a position where you're in more debt and have to work harder to pay it off. 2. The second point Kiyosaki makes about taxes, which is related to the first, is that there are fewer tax benefits in the E and S categories and far more in the B and I categories. We'll revisit this in Part 3. Problem 5. Inflation will dilute your savings. If you can manage to save any between debt, taxes, and putting money away for retirement, Kiyosaki is adamant that parking your money is one of the worst things you can do with it. He says when you save money, you're really just letting it lose purchasing power because money depreciates so rapidly. The depreciation of money is called inflation. As money loses value, prices rise. Your $500 in the bank won't be worth $500 in 10 years. Though money in the bank earns interest, it also loses value because of inflation. Depending on the rate of inflation, you could be losing more value as your money depreciates than you're gaining through interest. Kiyosaki attributes inflation to the full elimination of the gold standard when the US dollar was pegged to a value in gold in 1971. To help your money retain its value during periods of high inflation, many experts recommend buying bonds. Bonds are loans you make to a corporation or the government which promises to pay you back the amount of your loan plus interest in a set period of time. In another piece of contrarian advice, Kiyosaki advocates against using bonds to save. Kiyosaki says that because the 2008 financial crash was predicated on unethically rated bonds and bond issuers are no longer in fiscal condition to pay back, bonds aren't a secure bet anymore. You can't escape the E and S cycle by staying in the E and S categories. Even if your E or S category job does lead to financial security with great retirement benefits and high enough pay not to have to worry about money Trading one not-so-bad job for a better job and eventually that much-coveted truly good job doesn't change the fact that you are still fundamentally constrained by the limitations of your work and the life it defines for you. Financial security is not financial freedom. A job you love and that provides for you and a job you hate and that doesn't provide for you both define the parameters of your life, even if you're the boss. Ultimately, Kiyosaki wants you to take away two main points about the E and S categories. Your long-term financial health is your responsibility to create. He says you can't rely on your employer or the government for security. While people seek out the E and S income categories for security, to Kiyosaki, they are in fact a risky bet for financial security and a virtual non-starter for financial freedom. The more pernicious low-wage work cycle. Kiyosaki focuses on jobs that require college degrees and that pay enough for you to put at least some money away for retirement and take on significant debt. He focuses less on low-wage work, which often traps workers in a different and even more pernicious cycle. 44% of the American workforce earns low-wage income, a figure that has increased since the 1970s. Low-wage jobs are far less likely to offer any benefits. Low-wage workers are more likely to be laid off because of their lack of attachment, though benefits, to the company. Because of turnover in low-wage jobs, employers have little incentive to invest in training for workers to advance. It's harder to save money when you make less money. Part 3. Big business owners and investors, why the way to wealth is in the B and I categories. Kiyosaki says that while lower dash, middle dash, and even upper middle class parents teach their kids the out-of-date financial path we just outlined, rich parents teach their kids the income generation strategy of the B and I categories. While in the E and S categories you generate income in exchange for the work you do, in the B and I categories income comes primarily from assets you own. According to Kiyosaki, this is the surer path to financial freedom. In this chapter, we'll lay the foundation for understanding how the B and I categories work. First, we'll define how income is generated in the B and I categories and discuss the traits you need to succeed in these categories. Then we'll review how B and I income is different from E and S income and discuss why B and I income is the way to wealth. In Chapter 4, we'll cover how to succeed in the B and I categories. Big business owner B. People working in this category control not only a business but a business system. If they leave, the work still gets done. People in the B category own their business and generate income by its profit, though they no longer do the day-to-day labor of making it function. Like in the S category, a B's income is the profit from their business, but their profit is generally greater. Examples: Mark Zuckerberg, who founded and owns Facebook, Bill Gates, who founded and owns Microsoft, and the owner of your region's pizza chain are all in the B category because they own business systems. The B category versus the S category. The distinction between S's, small business owners, and B's, big business owners, is subtle in part because B's often start off as S's. For example, when a tutor sells her expertise and teaching abilities, she is her own product and her own business, which puts her in the S category. However, when the tutor becomes the owner of a tutoring company, she owns the system that finds and trains tutors, connects students to tutors, markets the service, and takes care of logistics. The tutoring company owner profits from the work and time of the E category tutors she hires. She's now in the B category. Similarly, in the early days of Facebook and Microsoft, Zuckerberg and Gates, respectively, did the majority of the work themselves and received their income from that work. They were in the S category. As their products and services grew into systems, they earned more of their income from the work of others rather than their own day-to-day work. They entered the B category. Values. People working in the B category are delegators and leaders. They must also possess superb business skills. In the B category, you should enjoy finding the right people to make your system work. In essence, they will be the system. You also need to have the people skills to manage others and bring out their best work, as it is the employees, not you, that will make the business run day to day. Become a B so you can become an I. Kiyosaki sees the B category as a bridge to the I category. Most of us can't go straight to the I category because we don't have enough money to invest yet or the free time to spend on our investment strategy. You can generate money to invest and gain some free time in the B category. Investor I. This is Kiyosaki's promised land where financial freedom really lies. Investors commit money, called capital, to something and expect to make a profit. Beyond the initial investment, they don't have to work day to day like those in the other categories do. Instead, their livelihood comes in the form of assets that generate passive income. Examples of passive income include dividends from stocks, interest on bonds, and rental income. To attain financial freedom, you will nearly always need to have I-category income because that is how you develop the passive income that will make up your livelihood once you stop working. Examples: because you can invest with almost any amount of money, anyone can be an investor. Kiyosaki identifies 3 ways to use the I-category. Retirement investing. Kiyosaki doesn't actually include people who invest only for retirement in the I-category because their investments won't replace their income. However, because of the decline in defined benefit retirement plans, most people invest for retirement. Supplemental investing. Remember, you can exist in multiple categories at the same time. You can be an E, S, or B and supplement that income with passive income from investments. Crossover investing. Your goal is to cross over to a lifestyle where you live entirely on the passive income you earned from investments. If you cross over, you front-load your work. After you research and make your investment, all you have to do is monitor your passive income to make sure it's performing well. Practicing crossover investing through retirement and supplemental investing. Kiyosaki categorizes retirement investing, supplemental investing, and crossover investing as 3 separate investing types, but both retirement investing and supplemental investing can turn into crossover investing. Many new investors start with retirement investing primarily because it's easy and accessible. Many employers will take contributions directly from your paycheck before you can spend it. If you consistently invest between 25% and 50% of your paycheck in 20 years, you may find that you've crossed over and no longer need to work. Instead, you can live off the income from your investments. At that point, you can use the little-known Rule 72T to withdraw funds from your retirement account and avoid the typical 10% penalty for withdrawing funds before age 59 and a half. Supplemental investing also has the potential to get you to the crossover point. The bottom line is, the more of your E and S income you save and invest, the likelier you are to achieve crossover investing. Values. The most important values investors must have are comfort with risk and a desire to learn. Since you own the means by which you're making money, your assets, you can mitigate risk by being as knowledgeable as possible about the risk you're taking. The real risk in the B and I categories is taking risks without enough information. Understanding cash flow. Cash flow is an essential concept to understand both in terms of succeeding in the B and I categories, and it's the central difference between the B and I categories and the E and S categories. Cash flow is the total amount of money you earn and spend and is the total of your income, expenses, liabilities, and assets. Income and expenses are simple as they sound. Income is the money you earn. Expenses are what you need to buy to survive that isn't debt. Kiyosaki wants you to think of assets and liabilities as being equally simple. Assets give you money. Kiyosaki's examples of assets: capital gains, rental income, dividends, residual income from businesses. Remember, when you derive profit from an asset, it's passive income. Liabilities cause you to lose money. Liabilities include debt, mortgages, and loans. Unlike expenses, liabilities are obligations that you must repay. In the E and S categories, cash flow looks like this. Salary or small business profit minus expenses equal income. For an example, in the E category, a teacher's salary minus her living expenses equals her income. In the S category, a writer's freelancing income minus her living expenses equals her income. If you have liabilities in the E and S categories, your cash flow looks like this. Salary and/or business profit minus expenses and liabilities equal income. With liabilities, a teacher or freelancer's salary minus her living expenses minus her student loans and mortgage debt equals her income. In the B and I categories, cash flow looks like this. 1. Capital then assets. First, when you invest, you make an informed bet that your investment will be profitable. A profitable investment is an asset and will supply you with passive income. 2. Passive income from assets minus expenses and liabilities equal income. Once you have passive income, that minus your expenses and your liabilities, if you have them, is your income. This is a fundamentally different way of making money. Not all assets are created equal. The central difference between the E and S categories and the B and I categories is that B's and I's have assets, and E's and S's don't. Some types of assets, though, are easier to convert to wealth than others. You may own a company worth $1 million, but if you're not willing to sell it at a given moment, it's impossible for you to access that million, making it an illiquid asset. Other examples of illiquid assets, which you can't convert to money by selling for a set period of time, are annuities, venture capital, hedge funds, and private real estate investment trusts, or REITs. Experts say that if you invest in an illiquid asset, you should expect great returns in exchange for how inaccessible your money will be. Liquid assets, on the other hand, are accessible at any time and include stocks, bonds, savings accounts, and mutual and index funds. Understanding the different logic of the B and I categories. Traditional thinking tells us that getting a good job is the way to financial security, and traditional education teaches us to think in ways that will help us be good at our E and S category jobs. According to Kiyosaki, working and earning income in the B and I categories requires new ways of thinking. Here, we'll go over 4 major changes you have to make to your thinking to succeed in the B and I categories. Difference 1. B's and I's fundamentally understand money. According to Kiyosaki, there are 2 groups of people. People who understand how money flows and grows, and people who don't. Those who don't are usually in the E and S categories. People who are fluent in money 1. Realize how important it is to be wealthy, and 2. Know that the best way to wealth is to be in the B and I categories. If you're fluent in money, you're at a big advantage. Difference 2. B's and I's utilize other people's money and other people's time. In the E and S categories, you earn money from your work and time. Earners in the B category generate wealth by using other people's time, and people in the I category can make money using other people's money. Remember that in the B category, you own a system that can run without you. A B category business owner makes money from the time and labor of the people who work for their business. In the I category, you can use your own money to invest, but you can also invest with other people's or a bank's money. 3 ways to use other people's money to start a business. Other people's money isn't just for investing. It's a common way to start a business too, since most people don't have enough capital on their own. 1. Borrow from the bank. A line of credit in the form of a credit card can be a good choice because many cards don't charge interest for the first year, allowing you some time to generate a profit. 2. Apply for grants and awards. Be on the lookout for opportunities to acquire capital you don't have to pay back. 3. Find an investor. Investors are always looking for great new business ideas. Yours could be the one they've been waiting for. Difference 3. B's and I's ask, who am I making rich? The fundamental question to ask yourself in the B and I categories is, who are you making rich? In a capitalist economy, Kiyosaki says, either you're getting rich or you're making someone else rich. In the E and S categories, employees make more money for their employers than themselves. People in debt make more money for their banks and credit card companies than themselves. Taxpayers make a large chunk of their money for the government. Consumers make money for the business they buy from. In all these scenarios, there's someone upstream from you profiting from your labor. In the B and I categories, however, business owners make money for themselves because their labor goes into a company they own. Investors make money for themselves because they earn direct profit from their investments, which they own. If you're not strategizing your cash flow to primarily benefit you, you're creating more wealth for someone else than you are for yourself. Should B's and I's make money for everyone else? Many people, usually on the political left, believe people in the B and I categories should make the government rich so the government can help those who need it. Between 2008 and 2015, about 30 Fortune 500 companies paid nothing in U.S. taxes. While the Obama administration lowered the corporate tax rate slightly during his presidency, the Trump administration's 2017 tax cut lowered the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, roughly doubling the number of major companies that paid nothing or less in taxes. As of fall 2021, Republicans and Democrats in the U.S. Congress are debating over the size of a post-COVID-19 spending bill that Democrats, who want to spend a larger sum than Republicans, say will be paid for primarily by increasing the tax burden on the rich. Difference 4. B's and I's know that our society rewards wealth. Kiyosaki argues that the wealthy play by different rules than everyone else. Kiyosaki identifies 2 ways our society rewards the wealthy for having wealth. As we discussed in Part 2, the B and I categories have a more favorable tax situation than the E and S categories. Kiyosaki says that middle-class taxes, often paid by people in the E and S categories, go to tax breaks for the rich, who are more often in the B and I categories. Some tax-advantaged investments are only available to the rich. How the rich stay rich. Wealth begets wealth because wealth begets power. The wealthy can better lobby politicians through their influence and donations. Since the 1970s, wealthy donors to conservatives in the U.S. have won significant tax and regulatory advantages that help the rich stay rich. Wealth also begets wealth just because wealth begets wealth. Wealthy people can take bigger risks which will return higher rewards because they have a significant financial cushion to protect them if their investment fails. There are also thousands of ways wealth itself rewards and creates more wealth, including that. The wealthy have better access to high-quality financial managers who help them get high returns on their investments. Wealthy people are more likely to earn high returns on their investments because of the size of their initial investment and because of the large proportion of their net worth that is liquid and can be invested. Wealthy people can access private equity and hedge funds, which yield high returns. Part 4. Becoming a BNI. Now that you understand the 4 cash flow quadrants and the logic behind why it's easier to generate wealth in the BNI categories, we can move on to learning how to break into and succeed in the BNI categories. To Kiyosaki, success in the BNI categories is as much about finance and business skills as it is being emotionally prepared to make big life changes, take risks, and maintain determination and flexibility. In this chapter, we'll start with Kiyosaki's actionable advice for getting started in the BNI categories. Then we'll discuss the mental skills he says are just as important. How to break into the B category. Kiyosaki recommends the B category because it's a far likelier path to wealth than working in the E or S categories because you can take advantage of other people's time to generate wealth. Kiyosaki says you have 2 choices when trying to establish yourself in the B category: create your own business system or buy one that already exists. Kiyosaki offers 4 routes to owning your own system in the B category. 1. Find a mentor in the kind of business you want to enter. Remember Kiyosaki's warning about whose advice you take. Make sure your mentor has actually succeeded in the field you want to enter and isn't just someone who gets paid to dispense advice. You be taking advice about being a B from a person who is an E, not a good idea, according to Kiyosaki. If you can do it, finding a mentor is one of the best ways to learn how to succeed in the B and I categories. A mentor will help you sift through the noise and will teach you what's really important. Not only will a mentor teach you what they know, they can also be a sounding board and a guide as you learn by doing. Be sure your mentor is successful in the field you want to enter, not a professional advisor you're paying. 2. Work for a company in the field you want to work in for 10 to 15 years. After that amount of time, Kiyosaki says you'll understand all the elements of that kind of business system and be ready to strike out on your own. 3. Buy a franchise. In the above 2 strategies, you're learning to build a business system. When you own a franchise, the system already exists. Your job is to make sure the people who work for you are running the system as best as possible. If you go this route, you have to do it by the book. Franchises aren't for people looking to be creative in business. Pitfalls of buying a franchise. In addition to having to follow someone else's rigid rules for a business you own, there are a few other common pitfalls for franchisees. Hidden costs. Make sure you're aware of all the fees you may be on the hook for when you buy a franchise, in addition to the share of profits you have to pay back to the company you franchised from. Misleading success statistics. Average revenue statistics may make your chances look better than they really are because standout franchisees may be skewing a pool that actually earns much less. Franchises perform differently according to geography, so make sure you're researching franchises in your area. Non-compete requirements. You may be barred from working in the same business sector for a certain amount of time or for a certain period of time after you sell your franchise. 4. Try network marketing. Also called multi-level marketing, network marketing is another way to join a pre-existing business system, and it can be a good choice because you don't need nearly as much capital. Kiyosaki says you can buy into a reputable network marketing organization for as little as $200. You also don't need as much business acumen as you do when you buy a franchise, and the organization you work with can offer you valuable business education. Network marketing gets a bad rap, but Kiyosaki says that if you can find an organization that aims to develop your business skills, leadership skills, and confidence, the experience can be well worth it. When you're researching organizations, you should make sure the organization is interested in developing you, not in having you rope as many friends as possible into the organization so they can make more money in startup fees. Choose based on the quality of education and support they'll offer you, not on the product. But do make sure you believe in the product so you're doing work you can believe in. Make sure you'll be working with people you like and respect. Network marketing red flags. Some network marketing schemes are scams and can be classified as pyramid schemes. Like Kiyosaki alludes to, single-tier systems are safer than multi-tier systems where top-tier salespeople make money off lower-tier salespeople and which can be pyramid schemes. Make sure you're being paid from your product sales, not for recruiting others. Other red flags for pyramid schemes include claims of extremely high earning potential. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Pressure from promoters. If anyone connected to the organization makes you feel like you're under time pressure to make decisions or start working, they're probably not reputable. Distributors buy more product than they'll sell. This is a sign that the way to make money at that organization isn't directly connected to how much product you sell. Note that MBAs are not one of Kiyosaki's 4 routes to owning your own business. They're a great way to get technical skills and a fast track to high management, but don't teach you the full picture of what it really means to run a B category business. How to break into the I category. Investing is how you generate passive income. Passive income is the key to wealth and is essential for financial freedom. At its core, investing is putting your money into things that you think will make you more money, assets. Key to investing is being good at investing. As we learned in Part 3, risk comes from lack of information. According to Kiyosaki, the risk in investing is investing without enough financial literacy or good information. If you can manage risk by educating yourself, investing is nowhere near as scary as it's made out to be. Get out of debt, raise some money. Very simply, you need money to be able to invest. If you're in significant debt, especially with high interest, it makes sense to reduce or pay off all your debt before you start investing. According to Kiyosaki, debt management is an integral financial skill and is an important part of cash flow management. Kiyosaki recommends the strategy for getting out of debt. 1. If you have credit card debt, use only 1 or 2 cards and pay off all new charges each month. 2. Earn an extra $150 to $250 per month and use it to pay off 1 card. Kiyosaki says if you can't earn an extra $150 per month, the B and I categories are probably not for you. Pay the minimum balance on all your other cards. 3. Once you pay off 1 card in full, move on to the others. Continue until all cards are paid. 4. Once all your credit cards are paid off, or if you don't have credit card debt, use the same strategy with other debt, like your mortgage, car payments, or student loans. 5. Once you're sufficiently out of debt, use the money you were putting towards your debt toward your investments. If you don't have debt, just put that extra $150 to $250 per month toward your investments. Another strategy for paying off credit card debt. Sethi offers an alternative and more comprehensive strategy for getting out of debt. Add up your total debt. Make sure you have a big picture view of everything you owe. Note the APR, annual percentage rate, which means interest rate plus any fees you have to pay, and the minimum payment for each debt. Decide whether to pay the card with the highest APR, which will save you the most money because you'll save on interest, or the card with the lowest balance to bolster your confidence by paying off a card quickest. Negotiate a better APR. Your credit card company wants to keep your business. Increase your monthly payments by diverting money from another spending category. What kind of investor should you be? Depending on whether you're aiming for financial security, independence, or freedom, Kiyosaki has different investing advice for you. 1. The client is someone who pays a professional to invest their money. You put up the money, but you don't make the decisions. While Kiyosaki encourages you to try to invest on your own, he says if you don't have the will or the talent to do so, this is your path. Make sure the person you're paying makes most of their money investing, not off fees. Why would you trust someone to invest your money when they don't even invest their own? 2. The DIY investor. You do your own research and make your own decisions about where to invest your own money. That is the key feature of the DIY investor and the key difference between this and the next level, the capitalist. DIY investors buy and sell their own stocks. In real estate, they buy, sell, and manage their own properties. To begin investing in the stock market, call stockbrokers and ask for their guidance, then open a small trading account. Meet Sethi on investing in the stock market. Kiyosaki is shorter on specifics for investing than Sethi. Sethi recommends starting with stock market investing, beginning with mutual and index funds, or, if you're willing to sacrifice some profit for ease, investing in target date funds. 1. Choose your own portfolio. Start with mutual funds and index funds. A fund is a group of many different kinds of stocks and bonds that you invest in all at once. Mutual funds are under active management, which means fund managers choose which investments to include. Mutual funds can sometimes produce great returns for a 1 to 2 year period, but in exchange for having a human choose your investments, you have to pay a significant amount in fees. Kiyosaki does mention mutual funds, but only to say they're risky. Index funds are under passive management, which means an algorithm creates a fund out of a section of the stock market, like the Nasdaq, which is a technology index. In the long term, Sethi says index funds are a better investment because they have very low fees. 2. Invest in target date funds. Instead of managing your own portfolio of stocks, bonds, and individual funds, you can invest using target date funds. Target date funds are funds made of funds and recalibrate as you get closer to retirement. 3. The capitalist. By Kiyosaki's definition, capitalists straddle two categories. They're both big business owners and investors. Whereas the DIY investor invests her own money, capitalists invest other people's money. Because they're successful business people, banks and investors are more willing to loan them larger sums of money which the capitalist invests. You need to have the highest level of financial literacy to reach this level. Investing advice. 1. Invest in what you know. Kiyosaki says that wealthy people don't diversify their assets, and you shouldn't either. He says it's better to choose one or just a few investment categories so you can become deeply knowledgeable about them and make smarter investments. 2. Move your money. Successful investors keep their money on the move. The concept of the velocity of money describes how your money should move, like an avalanche that grows larger as it picks up new assets. 3. Don't follow the crowd. Don't invest in something just because it's popular. No one knows for sure what will be a good investment. 4. Blue chip stocks aren't safe. Even though these stocks are generally considered less risky, they're not invulnerable. The crucial mental skills for the B and I categories. Now that we've covered Kiyosaki's hard advice for breaking into the B and I categories, here we'll focus on the soft skills central to the B and I categories and explain why Kiyosaki says a good relationship to money, risk, and yourself is key to being able to generate wealth. Become financially literate. As we noted in Part 4, ours is a world run by people who understand how money works. If you don't, you're vulnerable. People who understand how money works get their income from the B and I categories because they know it's the best choice for generating wealth. If you're aiming to make your living in the B and I categories, it's imperative to be fluent in money. Remember, you need to actively take charge of acquiring a financial education because it's likely that your parents and education didn't adequately prepare you. 1. Learn by doing and by failing. Kiyosaki says the best way to learn in the B and I categories is by actually doing some business and investing. Making mistakes is an integral part of the learning process. When you make a mistake and then work to understand why it was a mistake, you're doing some of the best learning. 2. If it makes sense for you, continue in your formal education. Go to classes and seminars about topics that interest you. If you're academically inclined, get a degree in A, B, and I field. 3. Talk to people who do what you want to do or have information about your field. Do your own research. Read business news and newsletters. You need to understand the current market and legal environment you'll be working in. 4. Learn history, especially economic history, because history repeats itself. By having some knowledge of history, you'll be able to put the current moment in context. Learn to love learning. Many people who excel in business and many other fields were poor students in their traditional education. According to Kiyosaki, school creates an environment where students are afraid to fail and failure is punished. Students never failed in school and so they become adults who are afraid to experience failure. Students already got over the shock of not being the best every time. For that reason, they're more willing to take risks, which is key to success in the B and I categories. Many skills important in business and money-making and life in general aren't taught in school and are often more important than an A in advanced English or trigonometry. Kiyosaki emphasizes that we need to learn to love learning, but that some of the most important learning happens outside of traditional education. It's vital to figure out what you want to learn about and how you want to learn about it. It may look nothing like sitting in a classroom. Get over your fear of money. Before you can make any change to your financial situation, Kiyosaki emphasizes that you need to have a healthy relationship with money. Kiyosaki says fear of money, fear that you don't understand it, fear that you won't have enough, fear of taking financial risks, or 1,000 other worries related to money makes sense. Money is core to survival, impacts virtually every part of our lives, and is the difference between freedom and freefall. But Kiyosaki says fear of money impairs our journey in two ways. Fear of money can cause us not to act at all. Kiyosaki says this is a particular issue for people transitioning from the E and S who are used to the academic method of gathering as much information as possible before making a decision. This doesn't work in the B and I categories, Kiyosaki says, because learning by doing is so important. Fear of money causes us to make decisions based on emotion, not logic. Emotion-based decisions are rarely the best or even good financial decisions. Strategies for overcoming fear of money. In Your Money or Your Life, Vicki Robin agrees that a core part of financial freedom is freedom from fear and worry about money. She argues that by consciously connecting money to your values, purpose, and dreams, you can diffuse some of your financial anxiety. Sethi offers 3 ways to overcome financial anxiety. Trust your own judgment. Not every financial risk or spending decision is a slippery slope to financial ruin. No, you can earn your money back. Instead of thinking of your money as a stockpile you can't dip into, remember that you often need to spend money to earn money and that you should be spending some of your money on things you enjoy. Don't be over-afraid of wasting money. Not every decision you make will be the most economical, and not everything you spend money on will be worth it. While you need to be conscious of waste, if you're living a full and curious life and taking appropriate risks with money, you'll have to waste some money in the process. Take action, one step at a time. Learning to succeed in the B and I categories is a long process. But you'll never learn and never succeed if you don't try. In fact, Kiyosaki says on-the-job experience and especially mistakes are the best learning. Take baby steps. Move incrementally and build your wealth as you build your skills. Don't bite off more than you can chew, you could lose it all. You'll get positive reinforcement when you complete a small step. Avoid paralysis by analysis. If you don't even try, you'll never ever begin to see benefits. You can't have all the answers or full confidence before you start because you need to learn by doing. No one has all the answers or full confidence all the time. This is a symptom of our no mistakes allowed education system and afflicts people with more education. Think long-term, don't expect immediate results, and let the magic of compounding systems or money do its work. No, it's a long game. Break it down. Kiyosaki emphasizes that the journey to financial security and freedom is a marathon, not a sprint. James Clear's concept of atomic habits from his book by the same name is useful for breaking down a big undertaking into smaller parts. Atomic habits are small, atom-sized adjustments that are easier to start and will eventually compound into changed behavior. Clear identifies 3 types of motivation that create different habits, which can all be useful when working up to big financial changes. Outcome-driven habits form around a goal. While it's crucial to set a goal, whether it be financial security, financial independence, or financial freedom, just working toward one large goal doesn't necessarily integrate it into your everyday behaviors or your sense of self. Process-based habits form around a system. Thinking about your habits as a network of actions that are inherently a part of the goal elevates the work and makes you more likely to stick with it. Instead of narrowly focusing on financial independence and how much you have left to earn and save before you achieve it, you could try to consider financial research, networking, and managing your investments as a core part of the process. Identity-based habits form around your self-conception. Combined with process-based habits, this is perhaps the most effective kind of habit because it taps into your sense of self. You're most likely to stick with habits like reading investment newsletters and taking on increasing amounts of managed risk if you decide those activities are part of who you are. Believe in yourself. Earlier in this guide, we discussed the importance of understanding the logic of the B and I categories, of thinking like a B/I category earner. Kiyosaki puts equal emphasis on cultivating the emotional constitution to succeed in the B and I categories, on feeling like a B/I category earner. 1. Attitude and affirmations matter. If you think you'll be poor, you're more likely to be. Set yourself up for success by expecting to be successful in the long run. At the same time, expect disappointment. If you're not making a mistake or failing at least once in a while, and probably a lot more, you're probably not taking enough action or enough risk. 2. Have determination. Succeeding in the B and I categories is a marathon, not a sprint. Your ability to succeed depends on your ability to respond to challenges without being knocked off your path. At the same time, cut yourself some slack and practice self-care. Because it is a marathon and not a sprint, you won't make it to the finish line if you're completely worn out.